Beavemanites and Docutrons, assemble!
Okay, so back in the day, I was way above the wave, and I traded in the girls for the video games. I played so much Super Smash Bros. And the kids called me names. They called me
Welcome, Beavemanites and Daughterbots, to this very special Halloween episode of Beaveman and the Daughter. And of course, I'm the Beaveman. I'm sitting in Renegade Beaver Studios. It's a beautiful fall day in Michigan. I don't plan on spending too much time outside. Maybe I'll walk the dog. And here with me, of course, is the Daughter.
Hello.
And also a special guest today is the Swan, because she had nothing better to do. No, that's not true. Well, no, that's probably true.
That's pretty much true.
But we're doing some spooky stories. Are they true? Are they false? What do you love about Halloween's, Daughter?
I like the candy.
What candy do you like?
Candy that I'm not supposed to eat right now.
Why can't you eat it? Do you have the diabetes?
No, I got braces. Which means that I can't eat caramel, which is what I really want to eat.
Caramel's not good for you. Or, but is it?
It's delicious.
And I've got lots of caramel waiting for me in the other room.
Wait, why?
Why? Because I'm smart. Because what I did was I bought a giant bag of candy, and that's what I'll give to the trick-or-treaters. And then I've got 3 bags of candy that are backup candy in case I run out of that giant bag of candy. But if I don't run out of that giant bag of candy...
Conveniently, they're your favorite, aren't they?
No, they're not my favorite. 2 of them are my favorite. 1 of them is not.
And which one is that?
I mean, Snickers are not my favorite candy bar, but I'll eat Snickers.
Okay.
And because they changed the formula on the Butterfingers, I don't like them anymore. Because they're friggin' stupid.
I feel like they taste the same.
They do not
You
taste the
don't
same.
like Butterfingers, so
Yes,
you don't
I
know the
do.
difference.
They do not taste the same.
They don't. They taste not so good.
Big Man and the Daughter listeners, back me up on this. You know that since they changed the Butterfinger recipe, it is not very good. It tastes like somebody took a bunch of peanuts, chewed them up, added a little bit of sugar, pressed it, and then coated that with chocolate and sold it to us. That's what it tastes like. It's not very tasty. Don't like it.
Go back to the old formula. Why did they change it?
Yeah, makers of Butterfinger. I know you listen to Beaveman and the Daughter, so go back to the old formula. Don't make me swear on Beaveman and the Daughter.
Okay, we should go to the topic now. Thanks.
And why is that?
Because my story is amazing.
Your story is amazing. So you want to start us off with the first spooky Halloween story? Yes,
Yes,
welcome.
Yeah.
Beaveman and the Daughter listeners. Get ready and prepare yourself for this very spooky rendition of some sort of a literary genius document as written by the Daughter. She probably stole it.
I did indeed steal it.
You did indeed steal it?
Yes, I did.
Are you going to give credit to the person you stole it from?
I don't remember who I got it from.
Okay, well, tell the story. Set the mood. Go ahead.
Okay, so a couple years ago.
Oh, this is really boring already.
right.
How about getting into some sort of a mood there?
On a dark and stormy night. So there was once this lady, and she was probably in her mid-20s. Yeah, I could say that.
So she's old.
No, she's in her mid-20s, not her mid-50s. Anyway, so she was blind, and she had this seeing eye dog, and he was a German Shepherd. He was adorable. He was pretty fluffy. Yeah, sounds about right. And so this one night, she heard a couple noises when she was getting ready for bed, like little creakies of her house, and she thought she heard the door open, but she thought she was just hearing random things. And so that night, she got into her bed, and sometimes when people like are blind and they have they need reassurance, they look to their dog, not look to their dog because they can't see, but they feel their dog for.
They hear to the dog.
they feel their dog for like reassurance and stuff. And so whenever she needed reassurance, she put her hand out and her dog licked her hand. And so she did that when the dog was on the ground and she was in the bed. And so she was like, okay, everything's okay. And then she went to bed. And then the next morning, she got up and reached for her leash, and her dog was not there. And she knows where the leash is because she puts it in the same spot every night. And her dog was not there. And she was like, this is really weird. And so she used her Alexa in her house and said, hey, Alexa, call my best friend Stacy. And so it called her, and she was like, yeah, what's up? And she was talking and telling her what happened that night and saying that she can't really find her dog and she's called for him. And so Stacy comes over and she opens the door of the house and she realizes something is really off. Like, no dog, no nothing. And so she goes up to the room where the lady is, and the lady looks at her. Well, not really, but like...
They can still look towards the
I mean,
person.
yes.
It's not like they stare. They know where we are. They can sense where we are.
Yes,
There's
I get
something
that.
special
But
about-
she didn't see her. She just knew that she was there because they were talking. And so Stacy helps her up, and she's like, do you need anything? Do you need to go to the bathroom?
Yeah, she needs her friggin' dog, man.
Oh, okay. And so...
You think, yeah, well, my dog's not around. I need my dog.
Anyway, so she says, yeah, I need to go to the bathroom. And so Stacy takes her to the bathroom, and Stacy goes, and then, and so the lady's like, oh my gosh, what happened? And Stacy goes, your dog is like hung in the bathroom. And she goes, what? And so in the bathroom, the mirror is written with the dog's blood, and it says humans can lick too. And so the person who like came into her house that night, it wasn't just actual like noise creaking of the house. It was a robber, and they robbed her and knew that she was blind and that's what her dog did, and they licked her hand and then killed the dog and said that.
I got a few questions about this story.
Oh no. Okay.
Okay. 1. Why couldn't the lady go to the bathroom until her friend got there?
Because she did not remember how to get to the bathroom without her dog. And she was
I
scared.
feel like most blind people are not that dependent on their
No,
dog.
they're
They
not.
know where
They
their
know where
bathroom
everything
is.
is.
Okay, well, she couldn't find her stick, and she couldn't find her dog, so she was worried, and she didn't have to go
Is
to
this
the
person
bathroom
like
right
newly
away.
blind? They just became blind like yesterday?
No, they came blind like a year ago. It takes a little bit to adjust.
Okay, 2. Question number 2. Why did this lady leave the leash on her dog all night? That doesn't seem fair.
What do you mean?
The dog is just attached to the leash at all times. Like he doesn't
get, like,
get
a
to be
neck
off
break?
of his leash to go to bed.
No, he gets off of his leash sometimes during the day when they're just relaxing, but she needs him on his leash so that she knows where he is.
If
don't
he's
like
a
this
good
story.
seeing eye dog, that dog knows doesn't have to have a leash to it. Our dog.
It was more like
our
a
dog
collar.
Our dog will come to our hand, and she's not a seeing eye dog. All right, my next question: what type of ceiling or appliances did this lady have in her bathroom that you could hang a German Shepherd from?
Oh, she had this shelf on her bathroom, and it was like near above the toilet. And so basically the tail of the dog was in the toilet, and they like hung it up above the toilet so that it wouldn't get the dog blood everywhere.
Okay, all right. And then another question here. Who can overcome a German Shepherd without making a noise so that nobody wakes up?
Yeah, I feel like that German Shepherd
Oh,
would
they
have ripped a robber's face off.
No, they drugged the dog. They knew how, they
So this was
basically...
done beforehand. So
Yeah.
this was a plan, a
yeah,
plot.
they basically, that's how they knew that the lady needed reassurance by the dog licking their hand. They like stalked her so that they could rob her.
So was this lady like rich then?
Yes.
And they
She
just
had like
killed the dog.
they had like a mansion.
I feel like they didn't need to kill the dog. I feel like
Well, they needed to get in there somehow.
Hopefully they were caught. And
Clearly they got in there without her even knowing if she thought they were the dog licking her hand, so they probably could have just robbed her and left the dog alone.
here's a better story.
The dog would not be quiet then.
I got a better story then.
You just said the dog was drugged.
Again, the dog was drugged and killed before she went to bed.
So there was somebody also walking on all fours
Yes.
with a leash.
Yes. This is what I'm saying.
So some dude was just
Yes.
walking very slowly, and only occasionally did she just put her hand. She never pet her dog. She just put her hand out to have her hand licked.
Yes.
Sure,
this is what I'm saying.
This is completely reasonable. Is this a true story?
No, you alien.
Oh, okay,
of course
well, then
it's not true.
okay, well, then I'm
it's
not
a
gonna
spooky
shoot.
story. You told me to make up a spooky
It's
story.
okay, it's spooky. It's good. I like it. It's good.
No, you don't.
I thought it was a true story.
No, why would it be true?
I don't know. Okay, so it's scary.
Okay, next story.
That was scary. I'm frightened. I'm actually. I don't think it's scary. I'm mad.
That they killed the dog?
Yes.
Yeah, it disturbed me the first time I heard it. I heard it at camp from this girl, and I was the only one that was super disturbed and scared by it, and that, we were doing it at night, and so she was like, in the morning, I'm gonna lick your hand, and I was like, oh my gosh, someone's gonna kill me.
I wouldn't think that's a scary story. I'd just be mad the whole time. I'm like, I'm gonna find this person. I'm gonna rip out every single one of their fingernails, and then I'm gonna shove broken glass in every opening they have in their body.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm going to be the horror story for them. Do that to a dog. Ugh. I thought it was going to be something I thought you were going to have a twist on it where her friend was going to come over and she's like, dude, you never had a dog.
Like her dog was a ghost.
No, like someone was pretending to be her dog.
No, she was crazy and never had a dog. And she's not even blind. They're like, dude, what are you talking about? They're like, you can see you don't have a dog.
Oh.
Or like the stories where you always hear about people where they're like, you go over to grandma's and grandma's talking about her cat and you're like looking and you're like, dude, that's a giant sewer rat.
Yeah, where's the cat?
There is no cat. Good story, daughter.
Thanks.
Very nice. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a true story. That's why I was shooting holes in your story. I apologize.
Oh, yeah, okay.
My deepest condolences. Your story was quite good.
Thanks.
But it just makes me angry.
Yes, I am aware.
But now I feel better that it was not a real story. No one should ever hang a dog.
No, that would be very sad.
You what do you got there, Swan? You got a story?
Yes, my story is a true story. Back in the day, from my childhood, many years ago. Not many, because I'm not that old. Anyway, so my parents, growing up, lived in Detroit, and when they got married, they bought a house that my dad still lives in Detroit. From
Just to clarify, is this in Detroit?
It is in Detroit. Yes,
that.
it is in Detroit. But anyway, they bought it from my mom's uncle,
Who also resided in Detroit.
who lived in Detroit too. Yes.
Shout out to
so-
Detroit and
Go
Kid Rock
Detroit.
Kid Rock and Eminem. Even though Kid Rock did not live in Detroit, did he?
I don't know. I think so. He
Suburb.
says he's
He
from
was
like
rich. Guy
yeah,
was
I
rich.
don't know.
Came from a rich family.
I
Still
don't
love
think
you, Kid
Eminem
Rock.
didn't live in Detroit either. He lived in Warren. The house was a duplex. They bought it from my uncle, and it was a house on top of another. Like the duplex was one on top of the other. So there was an upper apartment and a lower apartment. And originally, my uncle lived in the upper apartment. Well, my great uncle, my mom's uncle, and then my parents lived in the bottom apartment, the lower part. And then when he sold it to them, my parents moved up into the upper apartment because it was redone and nice, and they were redoing the bottom where they lived in to rent it out. So they lived upstairs, they rented out the downstairs. I lived there since I was born, grew up there till fourth grade, I think, and then we moved, but my dad still lived there. So when I was in maybe first or second grade, they rented out the house to this lady who had two children, and one of their children was disabled. He had cerebral palsy, but he was about my age, but he was really just a giant baby.
At what point in time is this?
Hold
is
on
this
a
all
minute.
relevant to the story?
It is
Just
relevant to
curious.
the story.
Okay,
So this
all
lady
right.
was really weird. She was kind of like a caregiver for her son, but she acted really immature. So she always used to scare me and my sister. So you would walk in the front door and you would either go left up the stairs. It was a common door that you would either go left up a flight of stairs to our apartment, which we went up a flight of stairs. You turned right onto a landing. So it had a little landing with a window you could look out. Then you went up 4 or 5 more stairs into our apartment. Or you would turn left or right in front of the door and you'd go into her apartment. So there was a common like little entryway thing. So she would always scare the crap out of me and my sister every time we would either come in the door or come down the stairs. Like she stood out there and waited for us. And she would jump out and she would say, "Ooh, Aunt Mary." And I'm like, holy crap, why is she doing this? She's scaring the crap out of us.
She related to you?
No, not at all.
Then why did she say Aunt Mary?
I think she meant like Bloody Mary or something, but she didn't want to say that because she really didn't want to creep us out.
She's
but
hello,
she would
Clarice.
yes, it was so creepy. Like she would sneak up on us, like come up around the stairs on the landing and like jump out and like, that's not even safe. She's gonna make me fall down the dang stairs. Like, or she would stand at the bottom of the landing and say it. And every time she'd jump out, she'd say boo, and she would always say Aunt Mary. I'm like, this lady is so weird. So ever since I was a little kid, I always felt like somebody was watching me up those stairs anyway. So I would get out of the corner of my eye, I would see like a flash of white or like this dark hair that when I turned my eyes, I could see it. Like it was black hair or this white thing fly by my eyes. And it made me run up and down the stairs because I always felt it was like they're watching me or like chasing me up the stairs. And it was just this creepy, eerie presence where your hands would or your hair would stand up on your arms type of feeling. And my parents used to say, don't run up and down the stairs. But I had this creepy thing following me, so I would run up and down the stairs. So at the end of the stairs was a metal register. And they didn't want us to hit our head on it. So that's why they would say, don't run up and down the stairs. So I always felt I had to run up and down the stairs because I had this creepy presence watching me. Okay, you think my story's boring, but
No,
anyway.
I don't think your story's boring. It's just has a
repeating
lot
yourself.
of detail and you're repeating yourself.
It is
over and over again.
details because it creeps me out. Anyway, so all these things combined. So I had this presence of, shut your face, little girl.
It's now time to take a commercial break.
It is. And this lady who lived downstairs scaring us with Aunt Mary leads me into my real part of my story.
Okay, well, take one of that story. This episode of Beaveman and the Daughter is brought to you by Skylar Beavers. I don't know if you know this, but Skylar Beavers does the intro and outro tracks for Beaveman and the Doc and Beaveman and the Daughter. And his most recent track released was called Level Up. Level Up was the most recent track released by Skylar Beavers. And you can hear all of his recent tracks anywhere you hear music, such as the Apple iTunes app, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen for music. You can actually just type in Skylar Beavers online and you can find his tracks and follow him on all your popular social media as well. And also, we're looking forward to a new track to be released by him in collaboration with some of his other friends on November 14th. And now back to Beaveman and the Daughter with a very concise, spooky story by the Swan.
That's very detailed and annoying.
Okay, but this is the real part of the story. So anyway, that was just the leading up intro part. So anyway, now I'm in 4th grade and I'm living with my grandma and I come home to my dad's house on the weekend. Meanwhile, my mom's uncle, who we bought this house from, is now elderly, like in his 80s, and he moved into the downstairs apartment.
So the other people are gone now.
The other people are gone
The
now.
lady
Yep,
with
the
the
lady,
cerebral palsy child who would scream
was
Aunt Mary
creepy
is now
and
gone.
yes, she's gone now, okay? So my uncle, great uncle, moved back into the lower apartment. My dad is still living up in the upper, and my dad is caregiver for my uncle, who is 80 and can't take care of himself anymore.
That does not seem reasonable, but please continue.
Why doesn't it seem reasonable?
Because your dad's please continue.
Yes, okay. So anyway, so he's taking care of him, and my uncle lives downstairs now. He's a 80s-year-old man, and he's sweet and nice and great. Perfect, cool. Anyway, so I'm in 4th grade. We come home on the weekends to spend time with my dad, and we all eat together as a family downstairs because he can't come upstairs because he's elderly. So we're downstairs and we're eating. My uncle, we take care of him, all that good stuff. Okay, stop. Don't be mean to my story.
No, please continue.
So anyway,
The
this
listeners
is
have
the
already
sad
heard all-
part.
yeah, okay,
Yes,
please
okay.
continue.
So anyway, one day I come home on the weekend. I walk into my uncle's
Because
house
you
like I
lived
always
with your
do.
grandmother during the week.
Correct. Yes. And you're ruining my dramatic entrance to the story. So anyway, here I come in, I check on my uncle, and I find him, and he's dead.
Oh.
He's laying in bed, and he just looks like he's sleeping. It's peaceful. It's not a scary thing. I wasn't scared. I was in 4th grade, so how old are you? I don't know, like 8 or 9, 9-ish. And I'm like, go upstairs, get my dad. I'm like, I think Uncle is passed away. So
And your
anyway,
dad's
yes.
like,
So
yeah,
anyway. And I wasn't scared. I don't know. So
beer,
listen, you're
Swan.
ruining my story. So anyway, I wasn't scared. It was kind of peaceful, whatever. So they're like, it's okay, you can cry. I'm like, I'm not sad. He's okay. He's just sleeping, and, I don't know how much you understand about death at that age. But anyway, he passed away. So that night, I have this really, really vivid dream where I think I was awake. Like, I don't know. It seems like a dream, but I feel like I woke up. And this lady who had black hair, was really pale, very beautiful lady with white outfit, came to me and she said, "You don't have to be sad anymore. Uncle
And you're
is
like,
with
"But I
me."
wasn't.
And she said, "Don't worry. Uncle is with me and I'm going to take care of him now. But you can't run up and down the stairs anymore. I'm not going to be able to watch you anymore." And it made me have goosebumps and chills because she was the lady who was watching me on the stairs.
It was Bloody Mary.
So I asked my parents about it because I'm like, I saw this lady and I had told them about the lady before and they were like, whatever. They just didn't believe me because I'm a kid.
Give me a beer.
Pretty much. So anyway, I asked her. My mom pulls out a picture of my uncle and my aunt, and it was my uncle's wife, and her name was Mary.
So the lady with the cerebral palsy kid.
Maybe she saw it too. I don't know. But anyway,
Well, why
I
was
just
she
thought it
trying-
was...
Why was she
So clearly
doing
she was a
it?
flippin' psycho then, because she was trying to get you to fall. You probably actually fell and your aunt caught you a bunch of times.
I don't know. So
Ooh.
anyway, I just think it's really weird that the whole thing comes together with her really... She was really Aunt Mary, but I never knew anything about her or anything because they never talked about it until that day when I described her perfectly in a dream.
And she had a 10-year-old kid, which is a little weird.
Yeah, that lady was weird. Whatever happened to
That
that
lady was weird. I don't know. That's why I brought up the whole story and we led with weird lady.
Maybe she wasn't really scaring you. Maybe
not.
she was scared and she's like, "Ah, Aunt Mary."
Maybe. I don't know. Who knows?
Maybe she
But-
saw ghosts.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe was just saying, maybe because she was like, I don't know, a couple eggs short of a dozen.
Probably.
And she was like, "Aunt Mary." Ah!
Maybe.
Because she was just she was exclaiming to you the obvious, and you're like, "What the F is with this lady? She's always trying to freak me out."
Right. Maybe. But I don't know. I just still think it's weird that all of that was... And it was totally real.
Okay, so none of that was scary, except for the lady who would always go, "Aunt Mary." That lady was scary. That's what scared the crap out of me. Like, what's with this lady?
She scared the crap out of me too. I would never hang out with her. Like, she always used to try to get us to come play with her kids. No, I don't want to.
She's like, "I have a rather excellent collection of toenail clippings, orange peels." And
Okay, do you think
boogers."
your story's better?
I'm just saying.
Okay,
that
at least
I
he
think-
doesn't repeat
I'm saying that
himself.
your lady was freaking me out. That's what was scary.
Well, she
Freaking
freaked me out
weirdo.
too.
This first story by the Beaveman is actually been told on a previous episode of Beaveman and the Doc called Sci-Fi or Is It? Why am I telling this story again? Because it's quite a good story that I wrote, and because we didn't have a lot of listeners on that podcast, and by God, go out there and listen to that one too. Okay, this story is, well, I didn't give it a title, but this one's more science fiction than horror. But some people find science fiction scary. For example, the Swan does not like aliens.
No, I don't like aliens. I have an alien story too, but let's
okay.
hear yours first.
Can I man? All right, great. That's all right. I welcome your stories, Swan. Swan has some. Here's the thing, right? Here, daughter knows this. The Swan has some really good stories. It's the delivery.
Yeah, she delivers them real bad. It's like our cousin with the screaming spider story.
For example, you talked about 2,000 miles a minute when you did that story, and you gave the same details about 80 times. What we need to do is we actually need to write down your stories in the future because they're good stories.
All right, I'll write them down and you just read them. How about that?
I mean, I don't think it's your fault. They're quite good stories, but I think it's because you were raised by your mother who wants to give a detail about every GD thing that has nothing to do with anything. And then I went to the dollar store.
And then goes off on a tangent, which originally comes back to the story.
Yeah, but everybody gets tired of listening for 20 minutes before she gets to the point and wraps it all up together.
She does that in a voicemail, too. It's literally like 5 minutes long, and you can just fast forward through it to the end. And you can, or if you talk to her on the phone, you do the same thing. Like, you can put it down and come back for 3 minutes later and say, and she'll keep going.
No, Swan, your stories are very good. It's just the delivery.
Okay, I'm going to work on my delivery.
We should have just wrote them down. We could have wrote them into actual short stories.
Okay, well, my next one, I have it written out a little bit, so that one might be better.
And will you just, like, tone it down instead of just having pressured speech?
I'll try.
Like a psych
I
patient?
talk fast, I'm sorry.
They were good. It was really good. Let me move on. And that was a true story, by the way.
Yes. Definitely a true story.
I mean, as you saw it. All right, here we go.
From my great details.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good details. What can be sure, we definitely can glean from that last story is that the Swan lived in Detroit. The house was in Detroit. She spent the week with her grandmother. And
In
on the
Detroit.
weekend,
No.
she
Not
didn't say
in
that her
Detroit.
grandmother.
No, my grandma doesn't live in Detroit.
What?
Then she spent the weekend in Detroit with her father, and her uncle lived downstairs, also in Detroit. And for some reason, they thought it was a good idea for her father to be the caregiver of her uncle, which actually I think it might have been the other way around. Your uncle might have been the caregiver for your father. But what can we can also be sure that it was in Detroit.
All right, let's hear your story.
All right, okay, here we go. Here we go. In a flash not detectable to the human eye, the trans-dimensional portal opened. The carefully shielded spacecraft made it successfully through the Earth's atmosphere. Thousands of vessels, not detectable to the human eye, alighted in the grassy remote field in England. As the sun began to rise, millions of microscopic alien invaders navigated through the tall grass, spreading out over an area of approximately 100 square feet, and they waited. Drawing nutrients from the sun itself, just like in their home galaxy, the tiny invaders produced their own food, much like the photosynthesis of the vegetation of Earth. See, I like to throw in some science with that, too. Their mission on this planet was the same as their predecessors before them. Infiltrate, occupy, and conquer. Spread the collective consciousness. Make this planet their own as they had for centuries on other worlds. Primitive mammalian organisms approached. Patience is a human trait. It does not translate to the collective consciousness of the alien organism. In human time, they may have waited 1 minute or 100 years. It did not matter. The gentle dairy cow bent its massive head, gathered sweetgrass in its mouth, and chewed contently. The old man walked up to the still form of the dairy cow and gave it a little nudge with the toe of his well-worn boot. He gave a gentle sigh. Walking back to the barn, he looked out on the great expanse of his farm and took in the morning sun. As he fired up the old Alice Chalmers tractor, he wondered if the missus was going to make a pie today. It was 1987. They had been married since 1945 after the war. She was with a contingent of the American Red Cross. He had married a Yank, and she had stayed here with him in England. He called to his two farmhands, and they made their way to the carcass. Utilizing the winch, they loaded the old girl onto the wagon and slowly made their way up to the barn adjacent to the farmhouse. Later that morning, he walked into the house. The aroma of apple pie hit him square in the face, and he grinned. Picking up the phone, he dialed the familiar number for the processing plant. They would be by later that afternoon to get the carcass. He hung up, made his way to the kitchen. Standing over the pie, grinning ear to ear, he bent down and inhaled deeply. I do love pie, he thought to himself. I mean, who doesn't love pie? The carcass was removed that afternoon as planned. At the plant, it was processed and blended with feed for consumption by livestock, as was the common practice. The circle of life, if you will. Robert was walking back to the barracks on the air base. He had just come from dinner with his fiancée, Valerie. He had been stationed in the UK for 2 years now as a member of the United States Air Force. He thought about what he would do after service. Get married, obviously. Move back home and go to college to get a degree in communications. As luck would have it, his future wife was also from the Midwest. They celebrated their new engagement over a delicious prime rib dinner for him, salmon for her, and a bottle of wine that they could afford as two young service members. The year was 1993. Life was good, and it was only going to get better. 32-year-old Robert awoke one morning and felt as tired as if he went to sleep, like his brain was foggy. This was unusual for him. He was nearing his 33rd birthday, but he never felt old before. A father of 4 young children, he had taken up walking and hiking as his hobby and main form of exercise shortly after he got out of the Air Force. He liked to go camping with his wife and children. He did not think much about it and went about his day. Across the world, cattle were dying in record numbers. The microscopic invaders began reproducing at an exponential rate. Many countries began preventatively destroying large herds of cattle. Family pets like cats and dogs began dying as well. The World Health Organization placed a ban on livestock and the export of beef. The mini invaders continued production of spacecraft inside their hosts. Whole colonies occupied hosts until they expired or were butchered for food. Rotting carcasses did not deter the invaders. They simply engulfed the area of decay, and waited for consumption by scavengers or carrion. It had been 2 months, and Robert felt like he was in a constant mental fog, like he was not in control of his own mind or body. He had been to his doctor twice, who had informed him that he wasn't 18 anymore, and that he was still very healthy. He suggested he get at least 8 hours of sleep a night and avoid fast food. Robert insisted that something was wrong and asked his doctor to order his blood work. The doctor checked his blood counts, thyroid, testosterone, and various panels for nutritional deficiencies, but they all came back normal. Robert began to feel like his memory was failing him. Sometimes he had difficulty finding the right words to say. He had muscle spasms and felt like sometimes it was hard to walk, and his vision was blurry. At one point, he was driving home from work and lost his way. He'd made the same trip for the past 4 years every workday. The doctor ordered additional tests to include checking for HIV, Lyme disease, bacterial, fungal, and viral infections, and they all came back normal. A referral to a neurologist was initiated. CT scans, cognitive testing, all these studies were performed. He saw an eye doctor who prescribed eyeglasses. It was recommended by his doctor that he see a psychiatrist, as he felt perhaps there was an underlying psychological condition, and maybe this could explain some of the symptoms. Unbeknownst to Robert and his family, this same phenomenon was happening all over the world at a rate of 1 in every 2,000 people. Robert's family was very supportive. His wife was ever vigilant and felt that something was wrong and that more testing needed to be done. Robert was placed on vitamin supplements and an antidepressant. Finally, Robert's wife insisted on a referral to an infectious disease specialist. The infectious disease specialist did a thorough history and exam and consulted with another neurologist he knew from college that lived out of state and worked for a well-respected hospital system known for advances in neuroscience. Imaging studies included a type of MRI, blood work, and a spinal tap were ordered. It had been nearly 1 year since Robert's first symptoms of fatigue had appeared. At this point, Robert had stopped working. His speech was difficult to understand. He had to use a scooter because his gait was spastic and unsteady at times. He could no longer eat his favorite foods because he was at risk for choking. Robert was no longer Robert. His wife and children were devastated. There had been no answers up to this point. Robert was approaching his 34th birthday. Results of the spinal tap were abnormal. Changes in the brain tissue were noted on the MRI. The infectious disease specialist spoke to the family in private, and the neurologist was present via telemedicine on the monitor. The infectious disease doctor delivered the family a shocking diagnosis. It was highly probable that Robert had variant Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, a form of prion or prion disease, and there was no known cure. Robert experienced a rapid decline and became nonverbal. He passed away prior to his 34th birthday, under the care of hospice at home, surrounded by the people that loved him. It had been less than 1 year from the onset of his symptoms until his death. The autopsy and pathology reports confirmed the diagnosis of prion disease. It was felt that Robert contracted the condition by consuming infected beef during his service in the Air Force between the years 1991 and 1994. As a precaution, the family had genetic testing performed to look for the presence of genetic prion disorders, but all was negative. Sometimes Valerie thinks back to that night, so long ago when they celebrated their engagement, and wonders what would have happened if he would have just ordered the salmon. Dr. Johnson, pathologist, awoke early one morning feeling as though he had never slept. He had not been tired since his residency. Oh well, better get a move on, he thought. He had a busy day of examining post-mortem slides in the lab. In the expanse of 1 year, deaths are reported widespread throughout the world. At the end of 1 year, prion illness is reported in record numbers never before seen, and it doubles exponentially. Consumption of cattle is a thing of the past, but persons still succumb to the illness. The prion protein identified is different than seen previously. The most perplexing finding on post-mortem samples is the rapid disappearance of the prions over a brief time, as this had never been seen in the past. Lab animals at research facilities began to die from a type of chronic wasting disease and swelling of the brain. Scientists realize and hypothesize that much like the prion conditions they previously encountered, the incubation period is anywhere from 5 to 20 years before the condition manifests. Other scientists disagree, citing cases that seem to occur spontaneously with no known prior exposure in young children with a rapid onset of death. It is already too late. We've already consumed the infected meat. Scientists race to find a cure, but there isn't one. Will Smith can't save us this time, and so we wait.
Are you saying that aliens gave us mad cow disease?
Well, I didn't say mad cow disease. I said some form of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, one that they'd never seen before. I'm just saying that it's already happened, and we're all going to die.
I see.
Yeah? Huh? What do you think, huh? That was a scary story.
I thought it was very detailed and not very scary at all.
Because you're not smart enough to get it.
No, I got it. It's just,
She was snoring over here. We just turned her mic off.
Oh, yeah, okay. I don't understand how it had to do with aliens at all.
Well, that's the point. Okay, so there's a... okay, without going into too much detail. You've heard of mad cow disease, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so mad cow disease is a form of prion disease or prion disease, however you want to pronounce it. Basically, these little... I don't know if they can say that they're organisms or what they are. They can't really... They're in their own classification. It's a protein. Basically, they put burr holes through our freaking brains and causes brain swelling and kills us. And it did the same thing to the cows, okay? And like bovine encephalopathy, same thing. It happens to the deer, okay? What I'm saying is these alien invaders landed. They've been here for hundreds of years. They infected the livestock, and depending on the incubation time, which is the time from the time you encounter that organism to the time you die, could be anywhere from 5 to 20 years. They've been here for who knows how long. We're all already infected, but now you're going to just see mass deaths. That's the sci-fi portion of it. That's these alien invaders mimic this disease, but this disease is way more rapid in onset than, quote, mad cow.
And we're all just a ticking time bomb.
Because there's no cure.
I believe that this story was not very scary at all. That is my conclusion. No, I get it. It just was not very scary.
Well, what do you got? What's your scary story?
I already told my scary story.
I thought you said you had more than one.
When did I say that? I asked the Swan why she had 3. And she said, if you need one. And I said, well, I only got 1. I didn't think I needed to be prepared with more than 1. Maybe you should give me that information ahead of time.
I figured you would ad-lib a little bit, tell us some spooky stuff, tell us some spooky thoughts on the afterlife.
Nope.
That way you're like, I got nothing, man. Well, here's an interesting question. This is not a religious podcast, although, I mean, the daughter and I do talk about these things. The daughter, tell us your religious perspective there, daughter. It is Halloween time. So you can't be scared of things. Let me ask this question of the daughter. Do you believe in ghosts?
Yes.
But you don't believe in God?
Correct.
And
wait.
Logically...
Wait. Does my uncle watch this podcast?
Are you kidding me? You think your uncle listens to my podcast?
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't want to say anything wrong.
I don't think anything's wrong. It's your opinion.
And maybe
your opinion can change.
Yeah, let's remember too, you're 13 years old, so you should be having your years of exploration and trying to decide where you are in life and what you believe in life, and that's never gonna end anyway throughout your entire life. Your opinions are gonna change, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not saying that. I'm trying to make sense of it. You say you don't believe in God.
Correct.
Okay, but you do believe that ghosts exist
Yes.
and possibly aliens as well.
Yes.
I think that if you don't believe in aliens, there's something wrong with you. Okay. Now, some might listen to your viewpoint and say, well, how can you not believe in God, but you believe in the presence of ghosts?
Well, I believe in paranormal activity because anything can really happen. I mean, wasn't there like a story a long time ago about people living inside of people's walls? It doesn't necessarily have to be ghosts.
I feel like if you lived in somebody's walls, that's not much space.
Oh,
You can't really turn around.
You didn't hear about that
it's hard
story?
to turn. Kind of hard to turn around.
You didn't hear about that?
You can't really even scratch your nose.
You didn't hear
You live
about
in
that?
someone's
No,
walls.
let's hear about it.
Oh, I don't know much about it. I just know that it's true that like one time this person was living and like in this house.
That's believable at this point. There was at one point in time there was this person living,
Well, yeah.
and there was this house.
They were living in this house and like they heard like weird noises and stuff and they had someone check it out, I think, and apparently someone was living inside their walls for the longest time. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's true.
I mean, I could see if it was a walled up section of a house and they were living on the other side of that, but how would you live in a wall?
I have no idea. I just
Well,
know
okay,
that
so
they
a house,
lived in their
okay,
walls.
but you know that a house is framed in, right?
Yes.
So with like 2x4s, 4x4s, 4x8s, whatever. So every section, every so many feet, there is a wood partition or slat or whatever that's a 2x4. Okay. And so then on the outside of that, you've got the wall that you see, like here, right? That is, what do you call it? Drywall. Okay. And then there's a space. And that's where your insulation goes and your wiring and everything. And then there's your inner wall, like cement or whatever. So how would someone...
I don't know. I think it was a really
Were they
old
a shapeshifter?
house.
Were they like a shapeshifter?
No, I think it was just a really old house that like you could.
They're like, hello, someone walled me up in
No,
here. Hello.
No, like, do you know how like there's like those secret rooms and stuff, and they have like.
Okay, that I can understand. You're
But
saying that they were
no.
going through secret corridors and maybe they lived actually in the attic or something.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying in like those old houses, there's like those secret rooms, but in this old house, it was like they lived in the actual walls. Like the walls were like thick enough and they didn't have insulation in them. I don't know. I heard it from somewhere. I don't remember where I heard it from, but I'm pretty sure it's true. From like, I don't know, look it up.
You look it up.
You have the computer.
I'm going to look that up
I don't know.
later.
You can like. I think she kind of has a point, but not like my dad's house in Detroit. Let's bring it back to there.
Now, let me
has
this. Where
in-
does your dad live?
In Detroit. Yes, the house in Detroit. It has those weird secret rooms, and
Yeah, but that's a room.
and
That's
it's not really a
in the
room. It's a
corridors and things
space
like that.
between. Yeah,
Right, like a crawl
so there
space
was
or whatever.
a closet, like a coat closet, but then there was a little tiny door in it, like a Harry Potter door, that you could go in, and you could go from that little attic space to my bedroom because
yeah,
it
that's
went
what
through.
I said,
right.
but that's not living in a wall.
Right. So, but I guess technically it kind of is living in a wall, but it's the space between the walls. But
I
it's
will strangle you with my microphone cord.
will you? That would be fun. That would be a story. I have the microphone.
I have the microphone.
Now you. Well, listen. But yeah, like so.
I
it
can
is
turn your
between
mic
the
off,
wall.
though.
I can throw your mic. Anyway, so maybe it is between the walls, but it's like the crawl space.
I
type of
feel like there's
situation.
a fictional story that's called, like, where there's something like that.
No, I don't think it was fictional. That's the thing. I'm pretty sure it was true. I don't know. I'll look it up later.
Well, you know, fictional stories are based on fact anyway. You know, the true stories are much more freaky than what.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure it was true.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just trying to understand the logistics of the
Yes, I
structure
get
of the
that.
home.
But I also don't remember. I just know that that was how the story went, and that's all I know. And then
gotcha.
I'm pretty sure it was true.
I gotcha. I'm tracking with you. I understand what you're saying.
Okay. Well, next story.
Next story. Swan. Tell us your creepy story.
Maybe
this
you
better
should
be a
look
good
at it.
creepy story.
You shut your face.
So that you don't repeat yourself
Be quiet
and
or
say
I'll
that
punch
you
you in
lived
the
in
mouth.
Detroit 30 times.
So back when I lived in Detroit,
East side.
West Side. Yeah.
Well,
no.
why would you be
Anyway.
on the west side of Detroit? I mean, east side
Yeah.
is the, I mean, Detroit
east side
is
of
the
Detroit
east.
is the Anyway.
Okay, well, I don't know. I don't understand.
So
I'm not
anyway,
from there.
right, from Detroit over here. I was a little kid.
I mean, is that anything to brag about?
No,
Okay.
probably not. So
I
anyway,
mean, we can get Tremonde in here and he can be like, Flint, yo. I'm like, okay, again, is that anything to brag about? Like, no, not really. No.
Okay. So anyway, when I was a kid, before 4th grade, because my parents lived together till then. So my parents used to play cards every Friday night, and they would take turns playing at like our house or different people's houses. So one night we went to my parents' friend's house, and I don't know where they lived because I was a kid and you never paid attention to that stuff. But
Do you think that they lived in Detroit?
they probably lived somewhere near Detroit. But anyway,
Again, too much detail. Just
it makes sense though. So we went to this apartment where they lived. It was in the middle of nowhere, but this apartment complex. So all around it was dark, except for the lights of the apartment complex. So we went outside, me and my dad, because he had to go to the car to get cigarettes or who knows what. Anyway, so it is dark outside at nighttime. We went out to the car. We're getting whatever out of the car. As we were walking back in, we both looked up in the sky, and we saw these orange lights. They were kind of pinkish, orange, circular lights in the shape of a triangle. And it had like a halo around it, like a glowing orb type thing, way, way far up in the sky. So we both look at it, and then we said nothing the whole time. We were both looking at these lights. So I'm like, is it a plane? I don't know. And nothing happened. It was not flashing, just glowing orb light in the shape of a triangle. It probably lasted 30 seconds or so, but it seemed like forever. So we're looking at these lights. We stare up at them. All of a sudden, they do this zigzag pattern back and forth in the sky, which had to be miles at a time, but they were all together in their grouping of a triangle. They zigzagged back to their original spot. Then they spread out really, really far, not in the triangle shape anymore, for maybe 3 or 4 seconds, came back together to the triangle, and then zoomed off and were gone. So a whole maybe minute, 30 seconds to a minute, but it seemed like time stopped at that time. We walked back into the house, into the corridor, and we both looked at each other and we said, "Did you see that?" And my dad's like, "Yeah, I saw it." I'm like, "What was it?" "I don't know." And that was it. I'm like, it had to be aliens.
and your dad's like, "Hey, give me a beer."
Y'all were both probably drunk.
Well, he was.
I
probably
was
high
like
also.
8 years old. But
Contact buzz from your dad.
But to this day, we will both tell the exact same story, and it was aliens. I know it was, because there's no way it could have been a plane or a helicopter or anything, and the amount of distance in the sky that it traveled was way too far to be anything like that.
Maybe it was people testing out jetpacks.
I don't know.
Well, you know, the Navy has finally admitted that they have had encounters with unidentified aircraft for several years.
Yeah, I think there's like
Finally, now
some
this
files
year,
that
but
are
now
out.
they don't call them UFOs. It's some other fancy name, which is still unidentified aircrafts.
Yeah.
So yeah, they finally admitted that, but then they're also like, "Whoops, we accidentally released that to the public."
Yeah. So I don't know, but the whole time that we were there, like watching it, you could tell it, like you just had a sense that you weren't by yourself. It was just the creepiest, weird presence of, I say, aliens. And at the time, I used to be scared to death of aliens. It was back in the 80s. Do you remember those Time Life videos?
Oh, yeah.
And they would have this creepy music come on, and this guy would announce, and he was like, "Mysteries of the unknown, like the pyramids or Stonehenge or UFOs." And I would close my eyes and plug my ears.
What
because
happens to the socks that you put in the dryer?
Exactly.
I know, right?
But yes, I definitely believe that was an alien.
Who ate the coconut cream pie?
You did. It was not me. I don't like coconut cream pie.
Well,
Or
good story,
coconuts.
Swan, but you still haven't told the most scary story of all that you know, that
Which
you
one
have
is
personally,
that?
that you know of for a fact. You have not told the scariest story of all.
Which one's that?
The scary story about your precognitive experiences.
That doesn't help me. What is that one?
Which one are we talking about?
The scariest one.
Which one? I don't know.
Are you talking about the phone call one?
Yes.
Oh, I
The
don't
one
like
where you
that
tried to call
one.
your friends.
Oh,
That
that
one
one
scares
Okay.
me.
But since we were just talking about aliens, let me tell my story.
Oh my
and then
gosh,
Swan-
another alien story? Are you serious?
Well, this one's not really. I mean, it is. This is a horror story. See if you get it.
Okay, but
or maybe
you-
it's too
I am smart,
hard
thank
for you,
you.
to grasp. Maybe it's too much. It's
Well,
beyond
the first
your-
one was way too detailed and too not fun.
I stand by that first story.
I didn't really like it. I'm sorry.
Beaveman and the Daughter listeners, if you could comment on that story and go ahead and listen to the Beaveman and the Doc podcast entitled Sci-Fi, or is it?
Well, maybe you should just agree with me because the daughter is right about this one.
The daughter's what? No one can understand you in her.
The daughter's right about this one being kind of boring.
All I could think of when you started and you were like, they make their own whatever. I'm like, chlorophyll, more like borophyll. I didn't say it because I don't want to interrupt your story, but.
You could have.
Yeah, you should have.
Fine. All right, are you ready for my scary story?
Is it gonna
scary?
really be scary?
Well, I mean, you guys are the first to hear it. So just let me know.
Okay.
All right, are you ready? Here we go. When David awoke, he found himself on a cold table, covered by a thin mattress of some sort. His left arm felt restrained. He opened his eyes, but everything was blurry. The room was very white, and there were strange noises, beeps, and the sounds of rushing air. He could make out light green figures moving about the room. They were mumbling in low, incomprehensible tones. A cold sweat broke out all over David's body. He felt a crushing weight on his chest, making it difficult for him to breathe. He could barely move his head. He reached up with his right arm and felt what seemed to be a metal collar or restraining device around his neck, and he could hear his heart pounding in his ears. Pain coursed through his body, emanating from his neck, back, and chest. "Where the hell am I?" he screamed silently in his head. He immediately realized that he was in some sort of a vessel. His vision was so blurry. The room appeared to be circular, and he could barely make out the large monitors. He could not recognize the symbols as they flashed across the screens. He felt like a trapped animal. What was he going to do? Was escape possible? He could feel the collar at his neck, as well as the crushing weight of the hard chest restraining device on his torso, and one of the green humanoid figures in the room. How long before they realized he was awake and aware of what had happened to him? His vision was so blurry. On the other side of the table on which he lay, he could make out a shiny metallic bar. If he could reach it, perhaps he could defend himself and escape from this hell. He was not about to become a victim of some sick experiment on some alien world, or become the pet of some intergalactic being. Nausea seized his stomach, and he fought to keep from vomiting. As he looked at the green figures moving about the room, he resolutely decided that he would fight to the bitter end. Better to die fighting than to suffer whatever evils the aliens had in mind for him. He could make out other tables with blurry, shrunken masses upon them of all sizes and shapes. Slowly, a tall, thin, green alien approached him. David grabbed the metallic pole with his free hand and wrenched his restrained hand free from its binding. He could feel warm and cold fluid seep down his arm that had been restrained. He briefly felt pain in the same arm, but it did not dissuade him from what he intended to do. He swung the pole with all his might and immediately felt pain surging through his neck and back, as if the devices emitted electrical charges as a way of restraining the human. The pole made contact with the alien with both a sickening and a satisfying thud, followed by the sound of the enemy's body striking the ground. David quickly got up from the table and struck the alien again and again until a pool of red fluid appeared. Now they were all moving against him, shrieking in horror. "Go to hell, you alien scum! I won't let you take me," he screamed. Suddenly, a familiar voice was heard above all the others. "David, what have you done?" It was his wife, Rebecca. "Rebecca, my God, they got you too," he yelled. Suddenly, he was engulfed by many hands and thrown back on the table, and a rush of realization and horror washed over David. The pain in his neck and back, the collar and the restraining device on his chest and arm. David vomited violently and began to weep uncontrollably. "David," Rebecca called. "David, don't you know where you are?" But he did know, and it was too late. There had been an accident. Only David was hurt. He had a very serious fracture to the second vertebrae of his neck that required surgery to keep the fragment from paralyzing him. He had experienced brief amnesia from the anesthesia he was given during the surgical procedure. The white room, or alien vessel, was actually the post-anesthesia care unit in the hospital. It was filled with monitors and devices that made confusing sounds. The collar at his neck was actually part of the prosthetic used to stabilize his neck after the surgery, and the device that encircled his torso as well was stabilizing the fractures in his back. The restraint he felt at his left arm was just the IV that had been in place. He felt the tug of the tubing, and when he swung his arm it had come out, and warm fluid had been his own blood running down his arm mixed with the cool of the IV fluid. His vision was blurry because David wore glasses and contacts normally, and he didn't have them on during or immediately after the procedure. The nurse had his glasses in her pockets. And the green humanoids? Those were the nurses and doctors in seafoam green scrubs, the color worn by this particular hospital's surgical staff. David was acutely aware of what he had done. Already staff was rushing the injured doctor out of the unit to the emergency room, never to recover. He died from a massive head wound. David wept uncontrollably. He felt the sting and burn in his arm as a nurse injected him. The world went gray, then black, then nothing. It wasn't his fault, the attorney said. He was suffering delusions after coming out of surgery. The jury agreed, and David was acquitted. He went home, neck and back still painful. It would be a long recovery. He sat alone at his table, weeping. His wife hugged him gently. Eventually, she went to bed, leaving David alone. He stared out the window as the moon rose above the clouds. I told you I wouldn't be a victim, he smiled as he uttered the words out loud. David got into bed with Rebecca, and as he lay next to her, he wondered if they had replaced her. Best not to take chances, he thought. Then he pulled the trigger.
I don't think that was very scary. It was just kind of disturbing, and I knew how it was going to end. But it was well
What do you
written.
mean you knew how it was going to end?
Oh, I knew how it was going to end. I knew it was going to be in a hospital with the nurses in the green scrubs. That was easy to predict. And, okay, the last part of him killing his wife, that one was kind of unpredictable, but him still thinking that he was abducted by aliens, yeah, that was pretty predictable.
Swan.
I figured it out too. The whole, but it was well written, I do have to say. Like I did think he was in a hospital on medication. Like I thought.
Okay, but let me ask you this question.
Okay.
The daughter and Swan. Did you only figure it out because of your backgrounds? I mean, don't you think the
Probably.
readers probably wouldn't figure it out?
What do you mean the background? What do you mean?
Like knowing
My
that we're
backgrounds?
medical, and that our stuff comes from a medical background.
I mean, we tell you all this stuff anyway.
No.
So if you didn't have nurses for parents, you would just be able to figure out like, oh, this dude's just in a hospital post recovery unit.
Yeah.
I feel like that's not true.
If you watch any medical show, even for like 2 seconds, it'll show them hallucinating and everybody in green scrubs and being like in danger because they think that they're gonna get killed by a stranger.
What shows show that?
Grey's Anatomy does that sometimes.
I feel like that's not true.
They're
You're only
in-
saying that because we've never watched that show.
I've seen that show. I thought you have watched that show.
No, I've never seen that show.
It's terrible.
Well, then why would I want to watch it?
I never said you should.
Okay, well, anyway,
I think it was a good story.
It was good It was well written.
I think you missed the point of the story.
What was the point of the story?
Well, the point of the story is it's actually a psychological drama. You don't. It was supposed to make you question whether he actually did it because of the anesthesia or because he's a freaking nut job.
Oh, I just think he thinks that he got abducted by aliens, like anybody would if they had
but-
like those hallucinations.
Yeah, but then why is he still like that? Why would he
killed his
kill
wife at the end? Why?
Yeah, because he
And
had.
why did he smile that he got away with it?
He didn't get away with it.
Yeah, he did. He got off with murdering his surgeon.
Oh, well, that wasn't his fault. He was on medication.
But he
That's
just
the
admitted,
point.
yeah.
It all
Let me read this
started
line
with
to you
him.
again.
No, it all started with him having hallucinations, and then he didn't think that he got like crazy sort of with his hallucinations, so he just believed in like that he got abducted by aliens and that his wife got switched out.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So you could account for his period of time that he had the post-amnesia anesthesia, right? You can account for that period of time, right? Then why is he still later looking up at the moon, smiling to himself, saying that he got away with it?
Because some part of him still thinks it from the hallucinations, because he doesn't think he was under hallucinations. He thought that was just what he believed.
My point is, this is a psychological thriller.
Okay. Well, it wasn't that scary. It was kind of predictable, but it was still well written. I give you that.
Thank you. I do appreciate. Sorry, it wasn't scary enough for you.
You're fine. And alien stuff doesn't really scare me. It's kind of predictable and easy.
I feel like that
So
was.
if you saw one in your closet, you wouldn't be scared.
I think it'd be kind of cool, actually.
I feel like, here's the deal, right? I think you didn't grow up with the Twilight Zone. You don't know what the Twilight Zone is.
I watched some with Skylar.
Oh, you've seen the Twilight Zone?
Some episodes.
This would be a good episode of the Twilight Zone because the Twilight Zone's like that, where it has like these weird little twists. And stuff
I can
like that.
see that.
So if anybody out there is planning on rebooting the Twilight Zone, still does the Twilight Zone, you would like a Twilight Zone episode. I feel like that's a pretty good one. Anyway, all right. So Swan, to wrap it up, give us the spookiest story.
Okay,
of
because
all.
I like this one, even though it's kind of freaky.
That's sick.
No, that's not what I
That's
mean.
sick that you like it.
No, I just like how it's.
You haven't even heard it. I just briefly told you a little bit.
I still understand it, and I like how it's like. Okay, if it was
Okay.
anybody else, I would have liked it.
Okay, listen.
Oh, so my delivery. She doesn't like it because of my delivery.
No, that's not what I'm
That's not
saying.
what she's saying.
If it was a fictional story, it would have been well written.
Okay.
Like, you know what I mean?
I feel you.
Okay, so I guess I have two stories. One of them, anyway, my friend from college used to call me up randomly to see if I wanted to go to like Pistons games or Lions games. And so I
Detroit.
would, in Detroit, yes. But he didn't live in Detroit. His parents were very wealthy. And I never knew back then that, there's, I'm not good at telling stories.
Just tell it.
So anyway, my friend used to call me up and ask me to go to Pistons or Lions games. So one day he called me and I didn't answer the phone. So I called him 2 days later and his mom answered the phone and she said that he had just died 2 days ago. So the day he called me, he passed away. Like, so maybe he was calling to say goodbye. I don't know what he had, but he had like some muscle wasting type of disease. So he passed away from that. So his mom called me back and gave me all of his funeral details. And I was, planning on going to his funeral. And that day before, I dreamed about him. And he told me that he had a $100 bill signed by one of his favorite Pistons players. I can't remember who it was. And it was taped to the inside of his closet door where it had like the bifold closet doors. So he wanted it and he wanted to be buried with it. So he said, please call my mom and tell her that's where it is. So I called his mom, sounding like a crazy person, to tell her this because I didn't even know if that was a real thing or not. And she was actually looking for it. And she cried and thanked me for calling her to tell her where this $100 bill was. And it was a true thing. I didn't know anything about this at all.
You have weird dreams.
So that's my story.
Next story, not scary.
Not scary, but just creepy and weird.
Okay, well, last story for Beaveman and the daughter, as told to me by someone very close to me, who apparently has some corrupted memories of the time. Possibly it was traumatic, and that's why. Because I told the story to the daughter, and now I will relate it again to the listeners. But then when I asked the person who told me the story originally, the story was completely different. Coincidence? I think not, because the brain will help us adapt in ways to protect us. So here's the story. This particular person was very close to these two folks who were the parents of some children that she grew up with. Their family was very close. The mothers were good friends of each other. Eventually, they moved away and they moved to Louisiana. Not that far from New Orleans, as we all know, is a magical and, if not somewhat creepy place. One day, this individual, who I'm very close with, told me that she had a very bad feeling about these two folks that she was very close to. Not only did she have a bad feeling about them, but she also had a dream that something tragic had happened to them. Because she was so worried, she called them, but they didn't answer the phone, which was very unusual because she very frequently received calls from the woman that she was close to. Later on, following that, I believe the next day, she received a call that they were both deceased in a tragic, what appeared to be a murder-suicide. Coincidence? Or had they been reaching out to her from beyond the grave? Aww. Yeah, so that's scary. What do you think about that, daughter?
It was pretty scary. Yeah.
Did you, leave some shepherd's pie in your pants when you heard that one?
No, because
No shepherd's pie.
I already heard it. So.
Well, don't ruin it for the listeners.
Well, I didn't. You just told them.
I didn't. Just know, Joe. All right, well, that wraps up our Halloween episode of Beaveman and the Daughter, and we hope you enjoyed it. Perhaps my story was too scientific for all of you.
No, it was just not scary.
You're like, no, it just was scary. And for the other listeners out there, go ahead and find out who was living in the walls and shoot us an email.
Yeah, can someone just look that up for me? Because I'm telling you, I heard that somewhere and I know that it's true.
I'm sure it probably is, because fact is a lot scarier than fiction most times. So everyone from Beaveman and the Daughter, specifically the Beaveman here, happy Halloween. It is my most favorite time of the year except for the raking.
Oh, it's my favorite holiday.
All right, so adios, muchachos.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Pika pika.